Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Now today I'm going to be making a gingerbread cake. I've had a request for this from a couple of people, so I thought I would do it. Now I did make this cake a few years ago for my blog, but at that time I wasn't doing YouTube videos, so this seems an ideal time to do it again. It's quite an easy recipe. There's a lot of things to get ready, but it's quite an easy recipe in terms of mixing and such like. Now what I do is I start off with a 9-inch square cake tin. Now mine isn't quite deep enough. This is only about 1.25 inches deep, and I'd really like it to be deeper than that. So what I've done is I've lined it with paper, and when the batter goes in, it can rise up and the paper will hold it in place. But if I think it's not going to hold it in place, I have ready some pieces of card which I can slot into the side there just to support it if I need to, but I don't think I will need to. So I set that to one side. Now I have my oven preheating at 160 Celsius, that's 140 Celsius with a fan, 320 Fahrenheit. And for my ingredients, I have 225 grams of butter, which is in this saucepan, 225 grams of golden syrup, you could use corn syrup, 225 grams of black treacle, you could use molasses, 225 grams of light brown muscovado sugar. Light brown sugar is okay. So those four things are going to go into this pan together, and they're going to be heated until they're melted and dissolved. Now I have here 4 balls of stem ginger from a jar, together with a little bit, maybe a tablespoon, half a tablespoon to a tablespoon of the syrup from that jar. And that's going to get processed to a pulp. Now you don't have to process that to a pulp. You could just chop the ginger up into little chunks if that's how you like to taste the ginger, or you could grate it with a micro grater until it's sort of almost like a pulp. But I'll do that later. I have 2 medium eggs, which would be large in the USA, 300 millilitres of milk, and this is semi-skimmed, so 2% milk. Then I have 450 grams of self-raising flour. In my case, I've got 225 grams of wholemeal self-raising flour and 225 grams of ordinary white self-raising flour. You could use a combination of the two, or you could use all of one or all of the other if you want to. And that's it for the ingredients. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put the sugar and the golden syrup and the black treacle into my saucepan. Then I'm going to just heat that through until everything is dissolved and melted, and then I'll set that to one side to cool down. So I'll come back once that's heated through and it's cooling down. So our mixture has all melted and dissolved nicely. So that's still warm. I'm going to set that to one side, and in my immersion blender here I have my stem ginger. I also have, I should have said, 4 teaspoons of powdered or ground ginger as well. So with the stem ginger, I'm just going to process that until it's like a puree. Okay, so that's done, and I'm only going to want to use about 2 tablespoons of that. So I'll just set that to aside for a minute. And what I'll do is I'll take our melted liquid and I'm going to pour the milk into that. And that's going to help cool that down so that we can start to use it. And I'll just stir that to mix that in. And then I'll take 2 tablespoons of my puree, and put that in as well. And just give that a mix around. Right. So then it's just a question of mixing the other ingredients together. So here's got my 2 lots of flour and my 4 teaspoons of ground ginger. I'm just going to stir those around to get those combined. And into that I'm going to pour our treacle molasses and sugar and butter mixture with the milk and the ginger, and I'm going to use my spatula to stir that to start with, and then I'm going to use a whisk just to mix it to make sure it's all combined and we don't have any lumps of flour. But I don't want to over mix this. It's really only a question of mixing it until it all comes together without any lumps. And then we'll put the eggs in as well. And then we just put that into our prepared tin. And then that's ready to go into the oven to bake. And I'm going to bake that for between 50 and 70 minutes. I actually think it's going to take closer to 70 minutes, but I will test it with a skewer after 50 minutes to see whether it comes out clean, because the cake will rise and it will fall back and settle a little bit, but it will rise. I'll test it with a skewer. If it doesn't come out clean, I will bake it for a further 10 minutes and test it again, which would be 60 minutes. And if it doesn't come out clean then, I will bake it for a further 10 minutes and test it after 70 minutes. It should be done by then, and I will take it out, let it cool down, and then I'll come back and we'll go on to do a frosting for it. Okay, so our cake is out of the oven and it's cooled down completely, and this is what it looks like. Very nicely baked, I think. So what I'm going to do is to go on to make an orange icing. So here I have 160 grams of icing sugar, which I have sieved, and that's about a cup of icing sugar. And into that I'm going to tip the zest of 1 orange. And what I'll do is I'll just give that a little bit of a stir around, just to break that up a little bit, the zest. And then I'm going to add orange juice. That's the juice from the orange, but I'm not going to put it all in at once because I want to get this icing to be of a dropping consistency almost, but not too runny. Now if you do make it too runny, you can always add more icing sugar, and if you do make it too thick, you can always add more orange juice or a little drop of water. Now that's actually looking, that's only taken just about a teaspoon of liquid, and it's already a little bit runny. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop in a little bit more icing sugar, and thicken it up a little bit. I'm using this little strainer just to get out any larger lumps that I might have in the, because icing sugar tends to clump quite a bit. Yeah, I think that's thick enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread that onto the top of the cake, and then I'm going to leave it to set for a little while before I cut it. So I'm going to push that almost to the edge. And I think that's good enough. I'm just going to leave that then for it to set for a little while, and then when I come back we'll cut it and we'll have a taste of it. Okay, so I've let our icing firm up a little bit. I've cut our cake, as you can see, and it looks very good, nice and rich and moist. And I'm going to have a little taste of it. And it's got a lovely ginger taste, as you would expect. And I would enjoy this just like this with a cup of tea. But I would also enjoy it as a dessert with some custard, or some ginger sauce or something. So it's very, very good. Now I hope you've enjoyed this recipe, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there would be an eye that would take you to the recipe if you click on it, and I'll also put a link for the recipe below the video. And I will be back with you with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.